Welcome to Expanding Consciousness with Gina. I'm thrilled to be having a conversation today with Jacqueline Mitchell, who is a clairvoyant, a psychic medium, a spiritual intuitive, and well known as an insight consultant. She's going to be talking to us today about the Akashic Records. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. Thanks for joining us. So the Akashic Records is often called a metaphysical library, isn't it? It's a concept of a place where all the universal knowledge is kept and it's waiting to be accessed. So it's almost like, what book do you want to take out? What chapter would you like to look at from our universe, from your life? So I imagine, and do correct me if I'm going off track here, but we can access past lives, we can access future lives. Can we go multi-dimensional as well?
You can go dimensional. There's a limitation towards future lives from our current perspective because you are weaving a tapestry of your own life that will be in the future will be focused on the now. So you have already experienced the past and other dimensional parts that you're off doing, and you're collating data, which is literally what we do. We're collating data of how we would do things. And so you can go, they're going, you can go sideways, you can go diagonally, you can go wherever you like, but we're in the now. So the future has yet to be created. So they wanting me to reiterate this just simply because of the fact you are a creator being. So you are creating what you need for yourself as well. It's a little bit like the movie Sliding Doors. If she didn't take it, which way would she go? But she's creating. So at the end of the day, yeah, there's a huge spectrum. Dimensionally can be up to in every single moment or second in time that you chose one option and didn't take another. You can dimensionally go off and have those, explore those infinite number of possibilities for a choice that you might have had from A to Z to decide which choice you were going to take. Then dimensionally in the Akashic Records, you can go off and be experiencing all of those. There's a very small aspect of your soul in this human body. It's multifaceted. So a facet can be experienced that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. It's very, very hard for the human mind to comprehend that level of expansion. But the universe is a universe inside a universe inside a universe, which so are we. So it's the same concept. So yeah, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating. So just
Right.
yeah, there's multiple reasons also they've just said of why you'd want to explore that as well. The reason they don't actively promote it to the same degree is we would spend a lot of time in the off worlds looking at this information instead of being fully present in what we're supposed to do now. So it's meant to be a library that you reference. I've just said reference to come back rather than actually living there, because
Perfect. Yeah.
it would be, you would spend a lot of time there. And
Yeah. Well, that gives a lot of clarity around, what the Akashic Records is and why we would access it and for what kind of purpose. And so going into like the Akashic Records for somebody, what would you typically do that for? To highlight things that are happening within their own lives, sort of help them understand patterns or karmic patterns or past lives?
ask the book to show you either a life, a situation, an event that is most affecting you in the now. So it could be the potentiality of it's holding you back or it's empowering you, but show what is, let it decide what's most affecting you in the now. That gives the bandwidth for spirit or the Akashic Records library to decide what would most benefit you in the now, right at this second, because the next second changes, the next moment changes. So the book will go brrr, and then it will stop and it will open. It will open either in words or it will play out. It's dependent on the bandwidth of the person's capacity for understanding. So if they are a very I had a lady the other day, she was very, very literal. She had a very, very defined vocabulary. So the book just said words for her. It just said exactly, it said, you need to listen more. Literally, that basic for her. And she goes, oh, I don't listen to anybody. case in point, the Akashic Records said you need to listen more. So she come back out because you remove yourself from that space because it's sacred space, come back, close the doors, and she was cross. Bless her. She won't mind me saying she was cross. And she said, why would it say that? And I said, would it affect your life differently if you listened more? And it's that the clicks that you hear when people realize they are potentially their own worst enemy through the habits and behaviors that we actually have. So it's absolutely, she was gorgeous and she got it, which was lovely. And she said, I think I got told off. And I said, there's no telling off from the Akashic Records. There's merely pointing out wisdom. So at the end of the day, it was her. Yeah, other people will have very, very complex understanding. So it's so uniquely dependent on the person's openness to what they can understand, because you can only match wisdom with wisdom. So if someone is exploring, then they will come at a point of view that sparks curiosity, but also is at the level that the person is able to understand that wisdom, which is something that I really like about it, because then there is no kind of proving a point about what have you experienced. It's so unique that you can't say, did you get the same thing to somebody else, trying to prove it to yourself, because it's uniquely belongs to the experience that you will actually have. So normally in a group setting, you'll have people have completely different things because we're all at completely different levels being affected in the now by what we needed wisdom about. So it's a fascinating process, but that is a really good technique to try as the double doors, because we know what double doors look like, we know what a black and white atrium looks like, but you don't know what the book's going to tell you. So that's where you have to be open enough to look at the understanding. So that's usually always different. So it's just
Oh, cool. And so like when someone is going through this process with you, if they're doubting themselves,
yeah.
how do they know what is actually the Akashic Records or not?
Well, they will literally, what will happen is as you've guided them through the double doors and you're looking at the atrium, normally if I'm doing a one-to-one or a group, I will have a quick sneak what's going on in their head, simply, pardon me, because of the fact that as they come out of it, they will say, did I imagine that? And I will always say the same thing. Why would you make something up? For what reason? Or can you just surrender to going, that was really vivid? So normally it's a vividness, normally it's a tangibility, and normally it's different from the way that their brain usually works. So I would say to them, they will say it was so fast, or it was so clear, or it was so this. And they've noticed enough that it hasn't actually been enough room for them to consciously think, did I make that up? They might say that was kind of, they usually say that was weird. That was weird how clear that was. And I'm like, well, that's absolutely fine. That's your first indicator that it's not your normal thought processes. So it's usually about being able to give them a bandwidth that their normal processes are not as clear as what they actually get given when they're open to surrendering with what's actually going on. The interesting thing is, the override of the brain about half an hour after you've done something, it will try and logicalize, make it very logical what you've actually done. So I'm just like, it doesn't matter. At the time that you surrendered to this experience, the wisdom was given to you. It's integrated, because that's what happens with the Akashic Records. And whatever turn the mind might do with it or the brain might do with it, the person's already got the information. So it comes down to the individual person and how deeply it touched them as well. But there's a resonance that happens where the person is so, oh my gosh, I got it's like a soul level ping. They got it. So you don't get a lot of people going, did I make that up? They were more like, you should have seen what was there. You should see what was going on. So it's a little bit like the openness allows you to have that allowability. So yeah, it isn't about proving a point to yourself. It's that gentle acceptance, Spirit says, of witnessing what is happening rather than creating what is happening. So that's a good way of putting it.
If someone says to you that they're not a visual person, that they have trouble daydreaming or imagining or seeing, like they're not clairvoyant, would they have any issues accessing their Akashic records?
I love working with feelers. Over the years, people have said to me, I can't see. And I'm like, awesome, it's overrated. Because to feel is to be fully present. So normally what I'll do is if I'm taking a feeler into the Akashic records, I will ask them to feel the weight of pushing doors because we know what it feels like to push the door. We know what it feels like to walk through a hollow atrium and have that echoey feeling. So you adjust the understanding, and if they open, they can hear the book, they can hear the book moving. You ultimately pull in all the other senses, so they get the sense of it. But always, once they've hooked into their feels, if you like, they are feeling and come through that side of things to feel, how do you feel about what the book's giving you? And normally, once they've surrendered to going, oh, this is the way I get the information, it's unique to me, they literally come out of it with a world of information as well, because the the 5D is a culmination of all the senses in your sixth sense. So you feel, you sense, you smell. There's other ways of actually procuring information for people that feel, because I think the pressure sometimes for some people of being expected to see is actually a block in itself. So I'm always like, don't worry, we're going to go in through the feels, it'll be fine. And once they surrender to not feeling like they're failing because they can't see, then you can always get that information as well. So they always come out with information, which is great. So and inadvertently on the way through the fields, they end up seeing anyway, because they always could. They just thought they couldn't. So, and I say to people, look, if you think of your cat, you don't see, but think of your cat. And they're like, oh, it's a black and white cat. And I'm like, got that in your head? They're like, yes. I'm like, look at that, you're seeing. So there's ways of people's expectations of what they expect to see versus a way that you gently encourage them that they've already got this capability, because they already do. They just don't think they do. So there's a way around, there's a way around everything.
Yeah, yeah. And what I love about you, Jacqueline, is that you're so experienced that you know how to like access and give people the experience they need for their own spiritual development. And for the people listening, I just thought I might explain a little bit that you're very multi-talented in terms of your intuitive abilities and your ability to have insight into someone's lives and spiritual life. Akashic Records is just one of many things that you know how to do. So when someone's presented in front of you and they might say, I want to evolve spiritually or understand myself better within a situation, what helps you know whether or not they might require a psychic reading, or mediumship's required, or accessing the Akashic Records, or maybe it's something else like another skill set you've got? What helps you determine what tool you use?
It comes back to, again, that what does this person need right now in the now? Because as you start a session, so it's got to be a session, full stop. I have no idea where it's going to go. Normally, it could go in a child, it could go relationship, it could go any way. I just basically open it up to the universe, what's the best for that person. Because at the end of the day, we can get very, very caught up on the fact that a person might be being disloyal to us or letting us down. And so we go, I need a psychic reading about what's going on in my life, or I want to talk to my father because my mum's doing this and he's on the other side. But the spirit will always go zoom, zoom, zoom to what the nitty gritty is. And normally the nitty gritty can be, your dad is here and he's in a support structure and he's never left you, but that what's going on with this person is because of what you're doing to yourself, because so within is so without. So quite often I've been a little bit suspicious of spirit, that sounds terrible, of going, the way that they will utilize every single tool that they've basically got to give that wisdom can come from reconnecting with a person in spirit, or that person in spirit apologizing for behavior when they were here, or that person in spirit saying, I'm the guardian for you and I will help you with this. Now there's all these support structures that come into play to actually help that person feel really, really supported while they're transitioning for anything else that's actually going on. So I literally, spirit calls me the telephone. So and basically that we're dialing into an area where there's multiple different spider web connections that can go off in any direction, and that person will get way more than what they're asking for without even realizing it. Because also, if they're talking to a person that let them down in the spirit and they're apologizing, that person's healing on the other side at exactly the same time as healing this person here, and then it's healing some inner child stuff that's to do with their past or the experiences back here. So there's literally tendrils just going ting 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 all over the place. And then I think the biggest challenge is trying to verbalize everything that's going on so that person gets a well-rounded understanding. Because mostly we only deal in verbalization, which is really, really hard to convey sometimes. So normally it'll be, going back to your question, it'll be exactly what they need defined by what spirit says that they need, not what they think they need. So it literally, they can start out in one direction and we can end up way over here. But I normally will basically, to get people to relax in a session, I will put out the colours that are around them and remind them how beautiful they are. And as soon as people feel seen, because you've seen the colours and the identity of their personality, they relax. They relax enough to let your people come in from mum's side and dad's side or friendships, and then they will reconnect, and then basically they will expand outwards of what's going on in their life and what they can help with them with, or any heads ups that they can give them. That's normally just a little bit because our human brain is geared towards fight or flight, so we love to be able to know what we can control in our life, and so that's normally why people are wanting to know what's going on with them. But what they don't realize is they are creating their next reality. So most of the time spirit is working with them of how they deal with themselves to move forward into their next created reality being a bit softer for them. So they don't really realize that's going on, but there's just layer upon layer upon layer that actually happens that we're kind of oblivious to, really. So because our current society doesn't promote you using all of your senses in conjunction at the same time. So it's certainly fascinating to watch what spirit will do to look after the person that's sitting right in front of me and make sure that they're safe, which is really lovely as well. So it'd be great if we eventually had something that could capture all of that going on, but I don't think we're there yet.
No. I think it's great that you explained how you kind of introduce or begin a session with someone, because for people watching, I get asked this question: who do I go to when I want intuitive advice? And it's Jacqueline. That's who I go to. I get a little fussy, as you go on in the years. You kind of want to make sure that you can trust the person that you're seeing, and I do trust Jacqueline. And what I really enjoyed about the sessions that I have with you is, as you say, the colours. That's actually quite a unique skill set that you have. It's not something that every intuitive does have as clearly as you. And I know you had explained to me that right from birth, you saw the world in colours beyond what most humans see.
Yes.
And I remember you looking around my energy field and you could see the colours, and you explained, what lemon yellow means and what a magenta might mean and what this shade of blue might mean. And it all made complete sense. But what wowed me was that you had that talent. I thought, how amazing to see the world like that and so clearly. And I think it's an amazing thing that you said about when you go into explaining people's colours, they do feel seen. You are seeing an aspect of them that very, very few, if any others, will see of them in their lifetime. And I think that's just an amazing skill set. I don't know if you want to explain to people a little bit about that skill that you've got.
When I was absolutely when I was little, so I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. That is around the time that physiologically in psychology you recognise yourself as a separate identity to your parents, basically. So around that period of time, and I have a twin, so there's two of us. So we were very telepathic, and we interacted an awful lot with each other because it was easier to be telepathic at that time. But around 4, my twin said to me he didn't want to do that anymore. He didn't want to be able to liaise like that. And that immediately left me kind of bereft, even though I was little, to go, well, I've got, what else do I have? If I, that's going to make me feel isolated, really, really solitary. And the spirit kind of chimed in and said, even though he's not going to, you're not going to co-collaborate in this lifetime because it's a free choice realm, we will basically keep working with you so you don't feel so isolated, so that you will basically be able to not get disillusioned with people but see how beautiful they are along the way. So they started teaching me at that period of time around what the colors meant, so that I could have a degree of understanding around people that would keep me safe, instead of having the twin alignment to kind of keep safe through childhood. So that was really interesting to watch them actually do that. So I learned that people flash red when they lie, so that was very, very confusing. Very handy later when I had children and said who pees on the toilet seat and they would flash red and lie. That's been really handy. But it also was very confusing because the whole reason why we're not telepathic is that our words and our thoughts don't match. They don't match. We keep things to ourselves. So if you keep something to yourself, you go blue here because there's no words coming out the way that they're supposed to. So I started to build an amazing code with the help of spirit about why people did the way things, that why these colors appeared, how thoughts were almost like starbursts of colors, like fireworks that come off their head. People go spiky like porcupines when they're angry as well. So their auras literally go, they look like porcupines. So it was basically defined that if I was going to navigate through this world without my twin to confide in or help each other along the way, then spirit would give me all these tools that would enable me to be safe as myself, and be able to keep open and understanding so that I could go on to be a teacher later on. So literally that's what happened. So I would always see clouds of turquoise over people's head, which is overthinking and over analyzing. If it sits across your shoulders, then you have a worrywart gene that usually comes from mum or dad's side of the family and is inherently passed down. If it's a clear turquoise, you think clearly. If it's a cloudy turquoise, you have muddled thoughts and pick on yourself. There are so many variants of shades, that nuances that mean different things. It's absolutely amazing. The lemon and shades of lemon that you just mentioned before, that is limited tolerance of stupid people. And sometimes it can be huge around people, and other times it can be thinner. It changes on variances of mood, which we know that different aspects of our personality come out. So people are actually walking beautiful flowers to me of all these colours of their personality as well. And people say, how long did it take you to work all of that out? And I said, well, it was an ongoing process between me and spirit growing up, going, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? So now it's secondary for me to go, I saw that that's a different shade. What does that actually mean? Or why is that around? Because, of course, sound and light are exactly the same thing. They're just turning up in a different format, but they mean exactly the same thing. So it's just learning those different frequency ranges, which enable you to look at things differently as well. So I had some very good teachers when I was little from the other side to help me feel safe being me, when there was so many people that I couldn't say what I was saying or what was going on, because it caused such an erratic childhood, and Was it a lonely one? No, because I had spirit with me most of the time, pointing out things or helping me to learn and grow. So it was an interesting one, let's put it that way. So it's very cool.
Yeah. Did accessing your own Akashic records at some point give you answers as to how that skill is so highly defined in your own lifetime now, in this present moment?
Um, yes, it did. I went back through the Akashic records out of curiosity, and they took me back in particular, to a life where I was basically deaf. So I was a very born to a semi well-to-do family that basically institutionalized me because that's what you did back then. It was anybody was was predominantly non-verbal or anything, and I would always look with wonder at through not hearing the other senses coming into play. And one of the senses that came into play was that colours were brighter, everything was brighter. So I had learned a lot from that life about noticing things. And when I would go back and look, they said with the absence of hearing, it meant that it honed other skills, energetic skills, noticing frequency changes in people. And we know if we lose a sense, we gain in the other senses. So this particular life was really, really interesting. I was like, oh, this is how I know colors. And it was really interesting when I first started to read for people. I would always, and I use my hands a lot, there would be times where I'll throw back to some sign language that I had used to know in that lifetime. So
Mm.
we intrinsically bring forward those skill sets that we've had or those experiences that we've actually had. And I think that I was so fascinated with the wisdom that came from being able to see those things that I've brought it back in this lifetime as well. But one of the things that Spirit said to me, which I've never ever forgot, is many, many times on this earth plane you will be disillusioned with people. We've helped you to see what they truly look like because people are so beautiful and yet they have forgotten their own beauty. So it's
Mm.
actually an honor when I'm reading to show people how gorgeous they are. Their colors are so stunning and how vibrant they are. And normally the response you get is people crying. You normally get that response because we judge ourselves so harshly and we don't see ourselves as attractive or beautiful. When we look at other people, we only see 20% at a visual level of what they actually are. That it's absolutely beautiful to work with people's colors and show them that they're amazingly, stunningly gorgeous when they've forgotten that they are. So I actually think it's a gift that Spirit have let me bring in because I think that people forget how valuable they are. They forget how beautiful they are. They forget how, Spirit will say to people, you're as unique and as amazing and vibrant as your fingerprints. There's no one else like you. Yet, our society says blend in rather than stand out as amazing flowers we are. So, yeah, I think that's been very helpful for people to realize. To the point, people say to me, "What do my colors look like today?" And I'm like, "Well, they're variable, but I normally go for about 14 personality colors, which tell me the personality of the person as well." So I did have someone say to me, are there any colors that are not good? Um, when we struggle with mental illness, we have a red stripe over our head because it means that we struggle with our thoughts. A lot of grey means that you can actually head towards negative thoughts. A lot of navy is depression and signs of depression as well. And Spirit will adjust how they deal with those people due to their sensitivity as well. So it's more a wisdom learning tool more than anything to enable me to navigate around people in different ways as well. So over the years, it's been interesting if you have a specific color, it's a very deep purple around you, which denotes your spirituality, and it can be in thinner shades or lighter shades or whatever. But if I come across one of those people, I'm quite happy to say I'm an intuitive. If I come across no one with this color, then I'm just a consultant because it's no point dealing with people have no interest in trying to convince them something. I'm far too old and too boring to do that anymore. I don't have a point to prove. I'll just accept people how they are. But I am slightly scanning people's colours just to adjust myself. I notice I do that so that that person feels secure or safe in being themselves. So it's been, yeah, a little bit of self-preservation technique there through childhood, but a lot to do with just being able to navigate around a multitude of different people and still help those people to feel either understood or seen, and mostly seen because we don't feel seen.
It's such a special gift and skill set that you've brought through to this lifetime. And I know how many, you've helped so many people and always continue to be in service in this lifetime. And what I really take from that is the remembrance that even if people are feeling like this lifetime is more of one of hardship, or maybe disability, as we, say, like being deaf or something, it is just this lifetime. Like, as you've just sort of explained, Jacqueline, we go on to have more lifetimes, and what we learn in one lifetime we can carry through that, learnings and new senses that we develop stronger into other lifetimes. So
Absolutely.
what one lifetime is, it's not going to be, it's not us forever. We continually evolve, don't we?
Absolutely. And the Akashic Records is really amazing because what a wonderful space to, and it really is like a library. And you think about it, think of it as that. I'm just laughing. The guides are saying, think of it as an encyclopedia of you, because it's not just they're making me laugh. It's not just I got up and I made bread today. It isn't about that. It's about, this is an experience I had where I felt what it felt like with my fingers. I tasted what it tastes like. All of those intrinsic experiences in the human body add up a multitude of different experiential learning. So you could bake and eat bread in Italy in one lifetime and have that experience, and the grains were different and the flavor was different and the lifetime was different. And then you could bake and eat bread in medieval England, and the texture and the flavors and everything would be different. So the experiences, as the way that human beings look at them in the Akashic records, is very much, oh, I had a life there and I did this. No, you didn't. You had an experiential, flavorsome, feeling, incredible experience that is way more subtle than what you ever realize. And the Akashic records capture all of this. So it is very much completely, as you say, experiential. And people ask me if I had a life as a bully, do I have the other experience? Yes, of course you will, because in experiential learning, there's no bad, there's no good, there's just an experience. And because we don't die, then it's a life you transition out of to have another experience as well. Why would we do that? We do that for soul level growth, because and that growth is curiosity. What would it be like if we do this? Human beings take life very seriously, yet nobody's getting out alive. So we should really have more fun when we're down here in the experiences, because we're building our own library of ourselves, an encyclopedia of everything that we do. And it gives us tremendous amount of, like a really good soup, an amazing amount of flavors to actually add to ourselves that we store in our DNA and we bring it forward. And all of the DNA and the Akashic records, it's all linked in together as well. So out of curiosity, if we stopped and said, um, in the Akashic records, how many lifetimes has Gina been a teacher? Then your book would literally tell you she's been a teacher here, she's been a teacher here. And just flicking through, you can go all the way back to, pre-Roman Egyptian times, and you've grabbed those threads. Now, if you do that in the Akashic records and you've had all this teaching, then at some point you may actually, which is going to happen in your lifetime, you're actually going to say, I really liked those teacher threads. I've accumulated all this DNA wisdom and Akashic record wisdom. At some point, I'm going to want to share that, because that's the whole point of working with humanity, is you share it along the way. So we all have choices about whether we go, have I done enough teaching, or will I come back and I do that again? you know, at the end of the day, you will pick up whatever threads in your Akashic line that you want to illuminate along the way, and you'll keep rolling it forward over lifetime, over lifetime, over lifetime. And that's an awesome thing, is it never gets boring. It's always another experience, because it's a different place, it's a different time, it's a different, like the bread, it's a different flavor. So there's multitudes and layers and layers and layers to every single life that people don't quite realize. So I don't believe there's anything such as a bad life, a boring life, or anything. There's experiential life to give you the flavors of your own making, basically, the encyclopedia of you. So yeah, it's really awesome.
Yeah. In your experience with the Akashic Records, obviously you see people spiritually evolve and, you know, perhaps change karmic ties or their karma through certain things, like realizing aspects of themselves through accessing their Akashic Records. If we go down the line of thinking about thoughts become things, you know, your beliefs can change your biology, that sort of way of thinking. If someone is going through the human experience right now where they're suffering, let's just say they've got an illness, and it could be a very unusual one where there's no cure or there's no explanation, as you know, or you know, current time explanation as to why they might have got that disease or that illness. Going back through the Akashic Records, have you seen anyone go through healings in terms of going, oh, there's an understanding and accessing something that gives them some kind of change of belief system and therefore changing their current DNA enough to go through a healing?
Yes, because it comes down to intrinsic value. So for every experience that you might have decided to have on the earth plane, there's an intrinsic learning and intrinsic value to it. Now, if you've brought through it forward from the way that they've explained it, and they're explaining it now, is that there's certain things that have the most merit being undone while in a human body. So if you have an illness that is basically manifested, and it could have karmic links or karmic ties to other lives, but it's manifested in the now because in another lifetime you didn't have the experience of forgiveness that you needed to do, then you can have something manifest in this lifetime connected to that basically not disables you per se, but actually makes you sit in humility, or makes you sit in forgiveness, or live your life differently, or and so that you see value out of your life in another way. Yep, those are all tied in together. They're incredibly tied in together. So again, it comes back down to that experience. Now, if we can trace it back to the Akashic Records and go, they asked me to use like leprosy as a example, and basically you start manifesting it to now, you can actually say, go to the Akashic Records and say, have I had this experience before? Why is it manifested in the now? What have I actually gaining from it to learn from it? And is there any wisdom in surrendering that I don't need to bring this experience forward again? How would I heal myself in the now and get to the bottom of whether it's experiential learning in the now? You've brought it through for a DNA coding. And what is the emotion? Because every illness has an emotion underneath it. What is the emotion that needs to be addressed in the now? If you notice, I keep saying in the now because we're right now. That would empower me to understand with wisdom what's going on right now as well. And a lot of people, and I have taken people back to do this, and they have, sometimes that can come back where you're supposed to be fully present in this experience, where in the last experience you kind of skived off, and I'm not doing this experience. So it's kind of like, oh, it's not, and it's not a telling off, it's the fact that you've repeated a process so you can be fully present in it and see the value of it in this lifetime, which is hard to do when we're human beings and we feel really ripped off of the fact that we're having to experience something, and a lot of people say, but they wouldn't have asked for this, they wouldn't have wanted this. But at a soul level, it's the value of the experience. So yes, you can negate it if you've brought it through inadvertently, but if you need to be fully present in it, then you'll be fully present in it. That's the learning that goes on with it as well. So it's defined by each case, it's defined by that person's individualized learning, but it is always something that I would recommend you go back and look in the Akashic Records, because if you can heal it in the now or absolve it in the now, release it in the now, why not? Why not?
Exactly.
Because
Could be
then you're
life
not carrying
changing.
it through DNA wise into cellular coding into the next one and the next one and the next one. So there is tremendous merit in looking at, while you're in the physical form, every single aspect to do with this as well. The trick is not getting 100% caught up in it, because you still have to live the life that you're here as well. I
Yeah.
spent about 6 years off the planet looking at all of this to come back and realize I'd lost 6 years without paying attention to what I was actually doing. Probably not the best idea, because you're going back there anyway. The value of being fully present in every moment is really, really, really important down here as well. So yeah, it's I can get the appeal of it because we're curious and we want to know everything, but also we need to balance it with an earth plane life at exactly the same time. If you've got a quest for knowledge, that's for sure. To be fully present, you have to forget everything so that you make all the choices. And that's something that is written in the Akashic Records as well as part of our learning, because people say, why don't you remember? Well, you won't be fully present if you've already remembered, because you've already done it.
So
So
are there universal laws written into the Akashic Records?
yes, there is. There's a huge amount of there's a non-interference which governs our planet, which was very hard to look at when we were going through the last 3 years. But there's a evolutionary viewpoint adopted from the Galactic Federation of non-interference, of basically working with collective consciousness only because of the imbalances of power that have been on the planet for too long. One of them is, in Lemuria and Atlantia, and the misuse of crystalline energy, which caused the planet to shift so much. There's a billion and one laws that govern optimum experience with the least interference, but are governed by human beings not realizing also how powerful they are. When you're told on the earth plane that you're not powerful, then they will accept that and operate within a least powerful. But to be perfectly honest, human beings can levitate, you can produce matter, you can do a whole lot of things. We
Mm.
have just It's what we surrender to being told that what we actually are. It's very, very limiting. And human beings are not limited at all. So all of those things are kind of a little bit in the Akashic Records to be able to be accessed. So it's kind of, your guides are making me laugh. It's very Harry Pottery. It's whether you choose to actually learn how to work the energy, how to do the energy, and decide how you're going to use it, because that's all part of the learning as well. So there's a ton of things that you're allowed to have. It's amazing, but we don't ask the question. Our main key down here is, which is curiosity. Curiosity keeps you asking the questions, and yet it is not a trait that's actively promoted. It's not. It's more fit in and do as you're told and that sort of thing. And I think that's been the biggest shame I've seen over lifetimes, is we've stopped having curiosity.
Mm.
We've deferred to people that are more intelligent than we are, and I think that's a shame, because everyone has such amazing abilities, creative abilities, and they get very caught in that as well. So the Akashic Records, yeah, very much has some really good wisdom, they're saying, about a way to actually approach things, because everything's readily available in the Akashic Records. You just have to ask the question in the right way. And I think that's half of a mistake when people make when they're asking spirit a question, is they ask from a perspective that's generic. Well, in the Akashic Records, there's so much information that's available. If you ask a generic question, then you will get an answer that just kind of semi-stops, because it's not specific enough.
It's interesting that our linguistics plays a really important part in what information we get. It shows that sound is obviously very important, as well as intention and how to access the actual information. And as you say, like the information that we want, and not something generic,
Absolutely.
or it misses the point. So, yeah.
Well, if you ask the Akashic Record something that has an ego placement per se, and said that, show me, and you could say, show me in my Akashic Records when I was really powerful, and the Akashic Records shows you, think I'm just following what the guide says, showing you a lifetime where you loved really powerfully and it changed people's lives, the love that you gave. And you go, no, 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 I mean powerful.
Like
Because
conquering.
absolutely. And they will gently say, then you should have said conquer, because that isn't power to the Akashic Records. The power is those, in the Akashic Records, is those moments of recognition that pure love that the whole universe is driven on is the most powerful thing. That is where your soul goes, oh, I got it. That's the elevation. And so in human terms, we get very confused by what those meanings of words are that kind of get really messy. Does that make sense as well? So
It
yeah, we give
does, yeah.
3D very limiting, very, very limiting. Whereas Akashic Records bandwidth is wisdom,
Yeah.
straight wisdom. And I think, yeah, because people go, what's the value of looking at them? Oh, wisdom. You know, you're a really good book of multiple lives. Wouldn't you like to know where, you know, there's bits of you that you can access to bring to the fore that actually helps you in this lifetime to understand? Because mostly in this lifetime growing up, you know, you didn't get enough approval, didn't get enough, you got too much criticism, so you're already doubting yourself already, when the
Yeah.
Akashic Records can actually say to you, oh my gosh, you've got this innate healing wisdom that you kind of knew that you have, but it's the tip of the iceberg, would you like more of it? So there's things that you can gain from wisdom of understanding that you can access. So it's an access point. It is a library. It's like you've already got a card, though. You're the card.
Yeah. Yeah. People through the technique. So people can join and do this at the same time, can't they? Sort of take themselves through the technique. Is that how they can?
Absolutely, absolutely perfect. Very much so. So I am always have been taught by spirit to keep it simple, stupid. Because if we don't make things as clearly defined, then our brain does wander. So they use techniques of things that we know. So they will say, in your this, I always start it this way: in your mind's eye, look at your feet, and you've got bare feet. Now, the reason is that you know what your feet looks like. So that's a starting point that everybody actually knows. And
Can
then,
I make them look better?
what colour toenail polish do you have on? You know, it's a little bit,
Yeah.
you know what your feet are like. So that makes you fully present because you know your feet. Then underneath your feet, you're standing on a very smooth, sandy pathway, but a foot in front of your feet is a concrete step. Now, whether it's marble, whether it's concrete, it doesn't matter, but I'd like you to take that step up. 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. Now you're standing in front of two massive wooden doors with two enormous iron knockers, sort of round circle knockers on them. I would like you just to push those doors open. They push very easily. They're not heavy, even though they're really huge. And you're stepping into a brightly lit atrium with very big white and black tiles. It's not cold, it's just light. You can look around and see that there's lovely windows off to one side, or plants, or whatever is there that you need to see. But in front of you, as you walk across the atrium, I'd like you to see there's a really big rostrum or book stand, singular book stand, standing right in front of you with a massive book on it. The book is closed. I would like you to step up to the book and have a look and see what is written on the very front of this very, very either opulent or interesting book, but you will see that all yourself. And what is the title of the book? So you retain that information of the title of the book, and then you ask the book, which is your book of Akashic Records, if it can go to the pages that you need to see in this moment that is most affecting you or blocking you in the now. And the book will flip open, the pages will spin, and then it will stop on what information that or wisdom that you need to attain. I'll leave you for a moment to process what you're being shown. Know that you can also absorb this information with knowledge because it has usually already happened, or you have a deep inner knowing where the book is going to help it come to the fore for you with wisdom and understanding. It may be a snippet, it may be a visual, it may just be some words. Either way, the book will show you what you need. Once you have your information, you can thank the book, your own Akashic book, and knowing that information is being retained, simply turn away from the rostrum, come back across the tiled floor, allow the doors to gently close behind you, come down through the steps onto the sandy path, and again look at your toes and realize that you're back in the room. How did you find the technique?
Very good. Actually, quickly went into it, quicker than I would have expected, actually. So that was really nice. Yeah.
It's very much they're intrigued. What was on the front of your book?
Life, the word life.
This it's very intriguing to me because one of the reason I ask that is that each person sees something completely different. And it's always interesting when you're working in a group setting. The very first thing that people say is, "What was your book called?" Now, the reason why people ask what the book was called is we're all hoping for some splendiferous, wonderful, the life and times of Jacqueline Mitchell, blah. We're after something really interesting. And always people come and they go, "It just said, mm." And I'm always laughing because in that one singular moment, the book has actually shown you, or your own book has shown you, your practicality of the way that you look at your whole life. It's not fluffy. It's not fantastic. It's usually really practical. So the book is immediately reflecting your viewpoint of the way that you see the world. So you just got life.
I got
So
life with a definite full stop. I was like, is the full stop there? They were like, yes, it's there. And I was like, does it need to be? Yes, it does. It's just a full stop.
okay. So I have seen people that have had exclamation marks, and I'm just like, because of the subtleties of the way that Akashic Records work, is that normally is that very big, I always have a chuckle, there's that very big giveaway of your practical way that you view your life, full stop. So it is very much, that's the first indicator that tells me that you're receiving the information, because our lovely imaginations or egos would love to have this opulent, incredible title for our lives. And usually you get something that's just really us down to a T, which is hilarious. So, and the amount of people, if their imagination or the way that they see the world, they will say it's a boring book. It's just a brown cover. They don't realize they're giving away, or their book is actually giving away the viewpoint of the way that they see life by the way the book is. So, may I ask, what was your book like? Was it was it very basic, or was it opulent, or was it very practical?
Oh, well, it was brown, but I actually quite liked it. But it was detailed with leather inscription, like patterns of leather and hand bound with leather string on, and it was quite thick. And
Yep.
it felt a mixture. And I know books aren't made this way, but it was a mixture of ink, like calligraphy on the inside, and a mixture of typing, like typed font.
Perfect.
But the outside was actually, it was just brown, which I know is boring maybe, but it felt rich and it felt like a lot of detail and care
Absolutely.
had gone into actually creating it.
Absolutely. So I can actually tell you the fact that it was a mix of calligraphy and type also meant that you have brought from the past calligraphy into the present typed things from the past into the now. So there's very, very subtleties in the spider web of where information is that is actually already being shown to you without people realizing what's been shown to them. So
Mm.
even the books tell their own story about who you actually are. And so it's always fascinating to talk to people about how the book looks, and get them to realize, because it's also a teaching tool, that those subtle nuances of what you actually see are telling you a lot about what's actually the way you approach your life. That sometimes with sheer practicality, the typewritten, other times with the amazing looping calligraphy. So it tells a lot about you, your own book, without you actually realizing it. So I'm always completely fascinated. And again, I reiterate to people, so if you were just making it up, why would you have noticed such amazing detail about your own book? So there is those affirmation pieces, if you like, that you can give to people that says, it might be a stock standard book, but once you start looking at the details, there was other stuff going on. And that's the whole thing. That's what you're not creating. Because when I get people to come back out of the technique and say, what did you see? Then they go, oh, that was there. And I saw that. And it was interesting. And that is not, I haven't led you in that direction. I just said there was a book on the rostrum. I didn't tell you it was brown. I didn't say anything. So you are not actively creating. You are curiously looking at the details, and that always tells me that you're in the right place. And normally people will go back to spend more time because it's a very short technique.
Mm.
And I go, get a journal, record what you get, because this is your book to ask questions. Most often people say to me, I don't know what else to ask it. That's where they get stuck. What else could you ask it? It is only ever limited by your curiosity. That's it. If the book doesn't want to answer, it will not show you things that you're not meant to see just yet, because it's about fully being present in the experience as well. So it is a very simple technique that gives a huge amount of information without you actually realizing you're getting a huge amount of information most of the time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that technique. I
Welcome.
just know people are going to get a lot from that. And like you say, it's something you can keep doing. Like this, whenever you need insight into something, to do with your life, or you've got curiosity, just redo that technique and something new will come up each time. And if anyone watching is actually comfortable sharing, you're welcome to share in the comments, like maybe what the book looked like or some insight that you got or the name of your book. I'd be curious to know. A lot of value on you sharing the techniques and this information tonight, because it's here for everyone to access at any time, and to replay it if they need to. So that's wonderful, because it's giving people a tool to just use on their own when they need to. So thank you so much, Jacqueline.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. And as Spirit always says, that wisdom shared is always wisdom gained, which I absolutely love. So thank you for sharing your time and the questions, which is really, really awesome. So that's great.
Yeah.